Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show. The Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts is proudly sponsored by the Global Wellness HQ community. It's an online membership group where we meet, we share ideas, we share insights, and we all work together and help one another discover our own personal wellness journeys. If you'd like to join us, you can easily click the link below or scan the QR code, and we love hearing your stories. So we hope to see you in the community. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm really excited to have my new friend, Keith Daw, on the show. Keith, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
All right. Keith Dahl, founder of Be Kinetic, a go-to-market advisory firm, helping the sales and marketing teams actually work together, make sure the common strategy, common execution, so better ROI all around, and happier teammates in the process. And our focus is really driven on the communication part. How are you communicating from a sales standpoint to your prospects, to your clients from a customer service success? Are the messages in on your website or your marketing campaign something that's designed to write about resonate with your clients and prospects, or is it just you speaking in your own tone and hoping something sticks? And really starting to make sure sales and marketing work together as a team, as opposed to everybody bickering and fighting, and leadership just seems like parents trying to tell the kids to shut up.
Yeah, I love that analogy because it always feels like marketing and sales are at odds. And it's like, but if you work together, the company goes further and faster. So, what makes you so passionate about communication? How did you go down this particular path?
So like many people, when you're passionate about something, it's usually because you had some kind of problem and you just had the epiphany and like, this is the thing that helped me. So let me spread the word. In my case, and kind of awkward to admit, I was actually fairly bad at it, but thought I was really good at it. And when I had one of those aha moments, and for anyone who's familiar with DISC, probably end up touching upon at least some high points on it. When I recognized, I'm thinking, ooh, this is a major self-awareness and situational awareness situation here now. Let me pause. Am I inadvertently creating or worsening a tense situation because of how I'm approaching it? And it's because how I'm hardwired, or what my experience, my baggage, if you will, has been. But then there's some other times where I'm like, not everybody is wired the same way. They don't behave or communicate in the same style that I do. We're aware that sometimes people do things or say things differently. We don't necessarily stop to learn the why. Why is this person acting or responding in this way that is either consistent with how I like to, quick rapport, or is it just oh my gosh, why is it so painful every time? But when you recognize the science behind it, and again, DISC can sometimes be a good foundation for some of that awareness, you're like, oh, well, these are things this person automatically tends to default to from a motivation standpoint, from a priority standpoint, from a comfort standpoint. And I'm in a different quadrant. Hmm. When I recognize those and say, okay, maybe I need to be a little bit more of this and maybe tone this down a little bit, it'll make a better experience for them, probably best for all of us. And it can apply in your sales outreach, your marketing outreach, at networking events, how you follow up at your networking events, which ones you go to, spend your money or the company's money. So in some cases, I can see communication is kind of like the hub. And then it's how do we use it in customer service, marketing, sales, leadership? What about operations and internal communication between departments? Again, networking events. got a whole bunch of CFOs and you have this person that's super, super excited about their brand new launch 3 weeks into their first sales job. They're going to crash and burn because you're going to have two diametrically opposing styles. And that person will be like, oh my gosh, this thing sucks. Why'd you send me to this meeting? And it wasn't that, it was just the approach. But in a lot of cases, they did either A, didn't know any better because they haven't been taught, or like most, and myself included years ago, they have those blinders on and they don't recognize that, ooh, I might be part of the problem. What can I do to now be part of the solution? Better communication, better results, regardless of what your role is.
I love it. And for our listeners, we're going to talk about communication here, but I'm going to back up just half a step because I think some people, when they know DISC, they know DISC, but I think some people may be just not familiar with it. What does DISC actually stand for, DISC? And why do you find it so important to communication, either from self-awareness or other awareness?
Great question. Two parts. The second part first, as far as the why, there's a lot of moving parts: in person, virtual, people that pop into meetings and you haven't met them or don't know anything about them, but you want to put your best foot forward. So being able to have a quick, simple reference that, based upon what you can see in an email, on their LinkedIn profile, or what you can quickly pick up the cues that people are naturally putting out, people like, okay, on the fly, kind of getting the sense this person's focusing a little bit more on these kind of things. It can help you understand how they might, not only how they want to communicate, how they might make decisions, when they're going to want to potentially collaborate with others on their team. Like, it can really help you from a sales standpoint, or from that marketing standpoint. How do we get this multi-touch approach to make sure we can hit all the people within an organization? Being able to have that quick reference of, I think they have a lot of D in them, probably a little bit of I. Okay, well, are you completely opposite? And then how do you adjust so that way you can rise to the occasion? To the acronyms, D stands for dominant. And again, thinking pure cheat sheet mode for those that are looking to level up, or this is new to them. That dominant person, think about, I need results for my clients, results for my people, results for my company. Those are the kind of things that a D style person is going to tend to think about. The I style is going to be thinking of, if our people enjoy what they do and where they do it and with whom, they'll get more performance, client satisfaction, less churn around in our company. The S's are going to say, look, we've been in business and doing things a certain way for a long period of time, and we make little adjustments as needed, and everybody's happy, everything's good. Change is not necessarily a bad thing, but we need to make sure that it aligns with what we've done, proven results. That C style, the C style is going to be, we need a process to accomplish it, we need a process to maintain it, and we need the data and analytics to be able to go back and make course adjustments and understand what's working, what's not working, and why. And when you stop and think, those are the four primary quadrants, D, I, S, and C. Most people will have a blend of two, sometimes three. They'll have a blend of two that are most apparent. And so why I like it for that quick reference, let's say that you are that business development, sales, or marketing person, maybe a leader, and you're going to a networking event. And let's just say that it's warming up and things are a bit more in person. You go to the event and you're excited, you're pumped up. And as I made earlier, it's recognizing CFOs or a lot of technical related people. And if you come in guns blazing because you're super excited and super pumped, and maybe you do have the next best thing since sliced bread, but that group is more of a, whoa, slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
What about? Tell me about. Can you give me some details? Can you give me a case study? And you're like, whoa, I don't have any of that information. Nothing might happen. Or you at least push through, and now your follow-up email to that person later that day or the next morning is, oh my God, Jeff, I'm so great to meet you. I'd love to have, here's my link. Let's talk. Let's see all the ways we can help you. I'm like, whoa. That person's like, I have no facts, no details. You're a little bit extra last night. And now I'm getting barraged with this email. I may not respond, or I might just say, not at this time. No, thank you. And then the person is, what's wrong with these people?
Yep.
for them to realize, oh, I want this, and this is what excites me, comfort zone. This is how they tend to operate and think. How do I at least make an effort to meet them in the middle? Be friendly with details, right? As opposed to, tidal wave coming in with features and benefits.
The tsunami just and I think that's important. One of my favorite quotes from my younger years is Tony Robbins. He used to say, I'm sure he still does, but the quality of my life is the quality of my communication. um, what kind of conflict would you see if somebody's, first of all, not aware of their personal profile? But what are some avoidable conflicts when we're aware of other people's profiles?
Great question. Great question. And I'll use myself as an example because earlier you asked me, "Hey, how did you get get onto this, and why you speak so passionately about it?" So my primary style is that dominant. Let's get things done. Let's get things done now. My secondary, also very prominent, is that C style, that analytic. So self awareness. I am results driven, process oriented. I've delved down enough to know I'm not the person who's likely going to build the process. That's that person who just geeks out in that C space. I'm
Yeah.
not going to build the process, but I might be good at helping to bring value to it, to improve it. Or I'm going to like, here's our process. Let's use it because it gets results. Don't change anything, right? It's perfect the way. So while that can be very, very helpful depending upon what role or function I'm in, if I'm working with someone who's an I, an S, or maybe more of a C, they could be coming to me with a challenge or a problem or an issue and needing help, needing advice. And part of it could be you're using too many words. You're all over the place. You're telling me you want some help, but you're also telling me you don't want to change. You're asking me for details, but I don't even know what the heck's going on yet. So it could be very easy for that D style of, I have a process to get results. Why aren't you following the process? You get a little frustrated.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why that would be important is sales, marketing, leadership, customer service, whatever you're in. If you're wired that way and you recognize it, self awareness, thinking, okay, there are going to be some times where certain people might trigger me a little. That's me. That's not them. So let's pause and think, how are they wired? What combo do I think they are? Because if I can say and do things a little more in their comfort zone, they're going to appreciate me doing the extra effort as opposed to me just relying like, hey, this is how I'm wired. If you like it, awesome. If you don't, I don't really give a, you know what, right? So that was one of the reasons that I said that strong will process oriented person in management roles, sales roles, and things like that over time. I've done a lot more damage in some of those situations where I thought I was perhaps a little more of a victim or could skate out with any accountability. And that's when I realized there's a better and a different way to communicate, being able to quickly go on the fly. Okay, I think Jeff has a lot of these two in there. I don't know which combo, but he's clearly got a lot of these two. It allows me to bring that persona to it. And while I don't want people thinking this is a fake it till you make it or not being genuine by acting, think about your favorite actor or actress. Depending upon the role, depending upon who the audience is that they believe, the persona you see, are they more frivolous, outgoing? Are they more serious? Are they more, right? You'll start to see some of these things, and it's because they want to relate to their audience and they're willing to adjust their own style when and how they need to be able to put their best foot forward. The other person wins, but then so do you.
And I think that's what I'm seeing and thinking and hearing and where I'm going down this path is if you're not self-aware, and I've been guilty of that, and this is not one of those, oh, we're perfect and you all want to aspire to be us. But the reality is if you sit firmly in one quadrant, and as you said, most people have a dominant and a secondary quadrant. um, at best, you're going to naturally have rapport with 50% of the population, which means there's 50% of the population that might work with you if you were self-aware and then other aware, you can help that other 50% of the population. But I've seen some people who get stuck in one quadrant, and they kind of take the approach of, if you don't like me, well, that's your problem. And it's
Yep.
like you're literally offending, if not offending, you're that little bit of sand or a little pebble in a shoe to three-quarters of the people that you encounter. Is that a fair statement, or am I
Oh,
misinterpreting?
absolutely. And to get even a little more with some percentages. So one of the things that was that moment for me, and this about 12, 14 years ago when I was working through, because I was that all, "Oh, what the heck's this pseudoscience stuff? I don't know." I mean, I was one of those people at first. But then when I started to recognize, I saw a stat that approximately 10% of the people worldwide were D styles. Quickly, D or C, whatever bar in my head said, wait a second, 90% of the people aren't wired like me. Quit getting frustrated and figure out what to do about it. You
Yeah.
know, the S style, that steady relator, the status quo, and amazing team centric, company centric. They'll put team, company, and clients ahead of their own selves sometimes. So for leaders, watch out for the people, the S's that are taking on too much and getting burnt out. But when I recognize, okay, a third of the people are S's, that's by far my lowest of all of those. I might need to learn how to interact with, because if you're got a buying team, chances are there are people like, well, this is the product we've always used, and here's the reason we've always used it. And it may not be perfect, but at least we know what to expect, and we figured out how to put the duct tape and baling wire. Right. And I'm worried that, integration and adoption by the team, people are going to, right. So that's where the S style really comes in. I'm like, the S's are killing my sales. Then I
Yep.
reframed my mind and said, how I'm interacting and engaging the S's is what's killing my sales. That was the moment right there where I recognized DISC is really important. It's not saying that it's everything you say and do has to involve this, or you're going to get black marks or something. But recognizing, this is a VP of HR. This is not the first time they've had this kind of a situation. I might be their last chance. They're probably going to get frustrated. They've probably been burned. So Jeff, tell me a little bit about the approach, the tone, the wording. It's just less. It's at this point, they need a friend. They need a shoulder. Me, if I want to get the results, I follow a process. The process is just sitting down, being a human being, and having a conversation in their style, their comfort zone, what motivates them, as opposed to what motivates me. Because if
Yeah.
I go in there like, Jeff, here's the problem, here's why the problem is, here's who needs to get fired, here's who needs to get hired, here's what you need to do, here's how much it's going to cost. Do you want to fix it or not? That's how I'm internally wired. I would never say that, but there's a part of my brain that is like, why won't you? So Jeff, tell me a little bit about your team and how they make the decisions. Because the last thing I want is this to seem disruptive, or this to come back and blow back at egg on your face.
Yeah.
Right now, all of a sudden, they're part of the solution. Now they finally feel like their ideas and their experience are being rewarded and included in this. Okay, so Jeff, as we go through this, what would your role be, or who else on the team? Who's going to love it? Who's going to hate it? Like, and those S's, while they might be slow to make adjustments, when they're like, this person totally gets it. They are not high pressure. They're having these combos. I really like them. That person also usually has seniority and tenure in the company. So when your buyer of 15 years that doesn't say anything nice about salespeople says, I like them, right? How much of a lift is that when you're in a competitive bidding situation? But if you don't know that this is a thing that's happening all around you, go to a bar at 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, between 5 and 7 on a Friday or Saturday night. You can see, you don't even need the noise. You can see the disc quadrant playing out. It is actually quite amusing.
And I think that's, I'm going to be honest. I looked at disc and I was like, yeah, that sounds like work. But the reality is, not learning it is work. You're always fighting uphill. Whereas when you figure out your quadrants and you figure out the quadrants around you, it makes communication feel a lot less effort, but it also gets faster results because you're speaking to the people in their modality, in their language. um, they're going to trust you more and they're going to want to spend time with you. Whereas if you're, bunkered down as a D and you're saying, anybody who's not a D, I'm going to just, fire things at you until you give in, you're always going to feel under siege, or you're laying siege,
Yeah. And I mentioned earlier that the simplicity that can be. Now, obviously, here's the simple little high level cheat sheet. Wow, just that little bit of info is better than what I was doing before. That's kind of what we're touching upon here. But then when you start digging down and start working towards I want to become a master of this, there are moments where you almost feel like a little bit of an FBI profiler when you're seeing scenes like, ooh, I can see where this could play out like this. That's bad. Let me proactively have, right? You can see this as a seller or as a leader. You're watching this dynamic on your team, and you've got the D and the C who are very intellectual and task oriented, and usually everything flows well. But now they're having a difference of opinion, and now you got the S's that are like, oh, what's going on over here? And the I's are like, hey, how do we help? And they're like, shut up, sit down. Right. And this kind of dynamic happens within organizations large and small. And those are some of the reasons I'm brought into organizations. Hey, we need to get sales and marketing working better, sales and marketing team performing better, and our communication could probably use some help. We all know if a prospect comes to you and says, I think our communication could use some help, it's probably a lot worse than it is. So the easiest way, if you're like, hey, this stuff sounds fascinating, I'm not going to spend some money to get a real test. Look, get a free one if you want, but you're going to get what you pay for. Just saying, there's plenty of free ones out there. But just look at it this way. Curious about this. I want to give it a try after listening to this podcast, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Ask yourself two questions. The person that you're wanting to communicate with, via email, phone, whatever you have, do they tend to talk more about people or things? Okay, tasks or people? Or do they tend to talk more about, are they more outgoing and energetic, or are they more reserved? Forget introvert and extrovert for a moment, because all four styles can be both introverted and extroverted in situations. So if you said they talk more about tasks and things, okay, chances are they got a lot of C and D in them. And what else do they talk about? Are they more reserved or more energetic? Probably more energetic. Great. Then this person probably has a lot of D in them. Take a look at the D notes of the do's and don'ts, and then just kind of be prepared, and you kind of have to roll with it a little bit based when you get more information with them. But if you're thinking, they tend to talk about people and feelings and they're kind of reserved, they're classic S, and you might need to, I need to do a huge adjustment into my preparation, where instead of, okay, you ready to get started, we're going to produce results, this is going to be great. Hey, looking forward to getting to know you and your team, immersing myself in this process. What are the things you're excited, right? The tone, the direction. I use words and phrases that are important to them. Consistency, stability, team, right? The loyalty, like how things flow smoothly. Those are things that are going to resonate with an S. If I can't deliver it, I shouldn't promise it, of course, but just those little tweaks. So do they talk about, people or things? Are they more reserved or more energetic? Just that might be able to at least help you whittle it down to cut 50% out. And then you're at least a little bit more aware of, I may need to be a little bit more this or a little bit less that based upon the disc. And just being able to share that, I can think of a dozen people that have said, I tried the thing, got a little insights, was a little scared at the moment, said something differently than I normally would have, and it hit the spot. Thank you. And that was without them getting assessed. That was just literally, do people think or talk about team, or things or people, tasks or feelings, right? Or do they talk, and are they more reserved or more outgoing? Just that will help you harness your focus a little bit.
Yeah, it's a bit of a blunt instrument, but it's better than none. And you obviously get right down to the laser focus. I'm thinking out loud now. You talk a lot about sales because obviously that's what you do. I'm thinking from a leadership perspective. there's got to be advantages to, you've talked about a little bit, but advantages to knowing who's on your team and how to communicate with them. But I'm thinking also from a team level, it's got to be advantageous to know your coworkers. Is that a fair assessment?
It's more than fair. So thinking about companies that I've worked with, again, there's some that they've dipped their toe in, sales training, leadership training, they have customer service training that I've done over the years. Some will dip their toe in and like, hey, any information that we have, any personal or professional development, it's better than nothing. Then there's the ones that they have ooh, this is really good stuff. It helps us internally, helps us externally as well. And they start to embrace it. And so what I will do with the leaders, like, look, I'll talk to the leader, the HR leaders, whoever, and we'll assess whether it's a full team, department, company, whatever we need. When they get the insights, a couple things can potentially happen. To me, it's what you do with the results once you get them. It's not necessarily what the results are. And that's where, choose my words carefully, it's where a lot of disc training falls flat, because you have someone who comes in and gives them the basics and the team doesn't get the what's next, how to integrate this into my daily life, either because the consultant doesn't know how to, or because the company was too cheap to pay the consultant for the ongoing, right? And both scenarios are there.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing to recognize is, as a leader, if you have certain teams and certain individuals that aren't working well together, and then you take a look at their disc styles and you're like, oh, well, no wonder I got a D and an S, or I got an I and a C, who can sometimes be polar opposites. They're trying to accomplish the same thing from two completely different perspectives. They're both right, but they're both wrong in how they're handling the situation. Now I can go into coaching mode and potentially work with both of them to help them, find that happy medium, because the I, starving for the structure. The C likes to be outgoing and fun, but usually very reserved on who those are in those scenarios. So they have more in common than they think, but they approach every situation differently. So it could be a coaching moment, or it can help with team realignment. Or when you're thinking about hiring, I'm looking to hire people for this kind of a role, and here's the mix of different disc styles I have. Do I need to add certain people that might round out that? Or do I need to be aware of, if I bring on another person that is super outgoing, let's get things done, now I'm going to create a problem. So DISC is certainly a consideration when you're looking to structure your teams, you're looking to consider who's going to be a good fit for a promotion or for hiring Moses. But I will provide a whole team report to clients, and they'll be able to get a cheat sheet. So when you're talking to Jeff is an I and a D. So Jeff likes this, Jeff relates to these. So now I have to go into a meeting, and I talk to Jeff once every 2 or 3 weeks in our organization, as on an as needed basis. So until I can remember he's an ID, here's what he likes, he prefers, until I can do that, I can check my team report 5 minutes before the call, get a quick reminder of what Jeff's style is, and know that I need to make a couple little tweaks. So having the data and recognizing, those patterns and those trends. We had one client some years ago where there were two of the most senior people in the company had hired everybody on the sales team within, say, the last 2 or 3 months. One was a CS and one was an SC. The S hired nothing but SCs. The C hired nothing but. So to the earlier part, we like to be around people that are similar to us, that we can identify on that motivation and comfort zone. But from a hiring standpoint or a team development standpoint, the first question out of their mouths is this a good thing or a bad thing? That so many people in my department or on my team or everyone I hired is just like me.
Yep.
Right? And so then you can, from the data, then you can have the decisions of, yes, it's working, you're actually doing a great job, or you're a little top heavy in one area, given the role and what your expectations are of the role. Perhaps we need to give them some training to help them even things out in their communication. But it might also be something as, team realignment, or as you're looking to hire new people, there might be let's expand on the awesomeness that we have instead of just being that myopic approach. And without this kind of data, a lot of time people don't even give those things a consideration.
And I love that data-driven approach because I know for a fact there are certain roles where certain profiles don't fit. And there are certain roles where certain profiles thrive. And I've seen people who are completely mismatched doing things and they're miserable. And when you help them find a role that fits them, they unlock and they go from being the, oh, how do we fire this person, to they suddenly open up and become the superstar. Now we do talk about holistic wellness, so I'm going to get a little touchy feely here. Would it be fair to say that these disc profiles are useful in the workforce? Would it be fair to say that they're also useful in our personal lives?
Absolutely. And I have a quick little anecdote that I think most of us could probably relate to. So, client that I was working with and doing some coaching with several years ago, um, said, "Look, I can't get past this. I can't get past this milestone for my career from an earning standpoint, and I want to create a challenge and take my family on a vacation." Like he wanted to push, and that was the reason why he was looking for the for the attention. Boom, he embraced the training. Disc, maybe not as much, right? So remember in my story, and he crushed. I mean, he beat that milestone by 15, 20K, and he was stoked. So he goes home for dinner and he says, "Guess what, family? I crushed my goal. We're going to Disney World for a week." D style. One of his kids, one of his daughters, I style. She's like, "Yes, we're going to Disney World." The other daughter, slightly older, who's a C style, didn't comment, but kept looking at the look on mom's face, deadpan, because the mom being the S, I know everything that we have going on personally and professionally. I know every time, all the things that need to happen, all the things that go on when we want to go on a vacation. I don't have any no, right? So she was frustrated. The C now, the daughter is feeding off, well, mom's not happy because she's the closest one there. And the daughter's like, "What the heck, man? You all should be."
It's
So
Disney.
he brings it to me and I explained some of this stuff. He goes to his wife and he said, "I was excited, hit a goal, was important to me, should have talked, didn't think about, didn't consider your perspective or the perspective of the kids. A good thing became an awkward thing. Apologize. How can we?" Right. And so he recognized that while what he did wasn't wrong, but how he did it wasn't correct for the situation and the people in it. And she calls me, she says, "I don't know what you're doing, but Mike, but keep doing it. It's great." And that was her moment of saying, he finally realized how he could be a better father, better parent by saying, "Oh, tell me a little bit more about that," instead of just walk it off and rub some dirt on it. But that's what his dad was, and that's what some of the bosses he had in his career. They were, "Well, you're not dead. Get back on the phones." So he just naturally gravitated toward those people, and he didn't know there was a different or better way. 20-minute phone call reiterating the stuff that he didn't pay attention to in the training changed his dynamic at home completely.
Love it. And I think that's when you start to recognize, and I think that's a powerful thing. I mean, I feel like it should be a must, at least as a starting point. And again, it's some people dive deep, but if you just understand, some people focus on tasks, some people focus on people, um, you're at least going to be right half the time, or
Mhm.
well, more than half the time, but you're at least going to be able to tailor your conversation. Now, full disclosure, I could talk to you about communication all day because it's one of my passions. Is if we could communicate better, we'd have a lot less conflict in the world. Um, but I do want to be mindful of your time. So, how can people connect with you? How can they find out about Be Kinetic and learn more about your communication training?
Probably the easiest way would just be to find me on LinkedIn. It's only 8 letters. I have a bunch of information on there about some of the disc references, but even thinking about delegation, right? Who are you going to delegate to? Right? If you're going to delegate a highly technical item with very specific parameters, there's probably only one of those disc styles you're going to delegate that to. But if you're going to say, "Oh, I can't make the networking event with 200 people in 2 hours. Hey, can you go?" The I is your best bet, the D probably your second best based upon. So being able to just have those insights, I think, are super important.
I love it. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Keith. I think my audience is going to benefit, and I guarantee they're going to have more questions. So I promise my audience will have Keith back another day. But thank you for taking the time to hang out with me today, Keith.
Absolutely. And based upon questions or feedback others might have, if things start to pop up of, hey, how do you apply disc to different scenarios or situations? If enough of those things come bubbling up, I'd be more than happy to come on and address some of those more specific things as a part two to this.
Well, thank you very much, Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.